friends and allies with us. I really want to thank Ann and her team for what they've done to put together this really excellent conference. Ann is truly a good friend, she's been a great ally, and we really depend on her leadership of the Alliance in helping us understand the best approaches that we can make. So really want to thank her for that. I also want to recognize that I've got my colleagues here, at least some of them, from the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, and I've just asked them to stand just so you can make sure you see them and can follow up with them. So first of all, I want to recognize Deputy Director Jennifer Ho. Christy Greenhouse is our Director of Housing Policy and Research. Lloyd Snyder is our Director of National Engagement and Field Operations. Jason Kravitz is our Director of Communications and also Congressional Relations back here in the room. And then Regional Coordinator Ed Pereira. Also have a small team back in the office, but we appreciate your willingness to work with us. As we start today, I just want to call out that 2 years ago, almost to the day, I stood here and shared with you a few thoughts on where we were headed with the first ever federal strategic plan to prevent homelessness. With your help, we launched Open Doors at the White House with cabinet secretaries, the head of the Domestic Policy Council, and members of Congress. And in big, bright lights, for the first time ever, the federal government committed to preventing and ending homelessness among youth, families, and children by 2020. It was a very significant day. Open Doors has stimulated what we see to be unprecedented collaboration across federal agencies, and we've seen them develop many of the best practices that you pioneered in the field. We see that communities across the country continue to lead in innovation and continued progress on making the kind of changes that Ann so ably discussed this morning in her collaboration. I also, though, want to say that I'm really proud to be in an administration that homelessness and ending it remains a priority. It's a priority for the President, it's a priority for the 5 cabinet secretaries who are engaged, and including for the first time ever, an education secretary. We have a real champion, and we want to call out thanks to Secretary Arnie Duncan, never before in education. Even in these really tough times, though, we've also enjoyed some bipartisan congressional support, which is not to be found in many other issues. But it really is a result of the tremendous effort that you've put forth in this room, and I think, as Nan said this morning, continued advocacy with Congress to make this a bipartisan issue is going to be critical. We also are really very excited about the fact that the Recovery Act helped 1.2 million people avoid homelessness or end homelessness, and it was done because of your work in implementing HPRT. This really is a tremendous feat, and I'd love to have applause. 1.2 million people were assisted. And these are really, really difficult times. In the worst economic downturns since the Great Depression, working together, we saw a drop in veterans experiencing homelessness by nearly 12%, and was noted about a 2.1% decline among all of the population. So that is significant. It's not the progress we all might hope for, but boy, it's really impressive. And the other good news that's out there is the unemployment rate is continuing to drop, and we're down to 8.3%. And last Friday, the President announced a new Veterans Job Corps initiative. The administration's new veteran employment initiatives, with strong focus by the President, is accomplishing some of the work that needs to be done to get thousands upon thousands of veterans back to work. And by getting them back to work, they'll avoid homelessness, and for those who are homeless, they'll have a pathway out. And just earlier this week, I don't know about you, but I was really excited with the announcement that the President is again requesting $1 billion for the National Housing Trust Fund in fiscal year 2022. Despite the progress, we know there's a lot of work ahead of us. And when it comes to family homelessness, the good news, as was pointed out this morning, is we know the solutions to to it. We know the pathway to ending family homelessness. We know that by focusing on tightly targeted prevention and rapid rehousing, optimizing access to affordable housing, and not spending our scarce resources on long shelter and transitional housing stays, we really can make the kind of progress. HARP implementation is an absolutely vital tool toward that goal. And one of the core elements that HARP talks about for families in particular is coordinated community systems that focus on prevention and diversion, shelter admission as a last resort. And across the nation, as was urged this morning, we've got to see quicker exits from shelter and transitional housing programs directly into permanent housing. That's got to become the norm. We also, though, call on local communities to be much more inclusive and accommodating of all types of families who experience homelessness. Whether that's two-parent families, LGBT families, families with teenagers, multi-generational families, every family deserves a place to stay, a safe, stable home. And it is simply unacceptable for anywhere in this country for a child, a youth, or a parent to be left on the streets. And we have to work better to make sure we accommodate all of these families, not just the families within our niche programs. Since 2009, thank you. Since 2009, with HPRP, as was said, we've learned a lot about what can work. We know that those communities that really focus their HPRP dollars on rapid rehousing made the greatest difference. And going forward, we need to have that focus continue. We've got to be very, very judicious in how we spend those expensive, intensive interventions for families. We need to make sure those are reserved for the families with the greatest need and available only to those who have the most desperate situations. So I promise you, though, we fully understand that with the winding down of HPRP, we too are concerned about the future. So as we look to that future, we think it's ever more important that we become creative in using that federal funding that is coming to you through HUD's redesigned Emergency Solutions Grant and the VA's brand new Supportive Services Veterans for Families program. And we think in both of those areas, when the President makes his budget announcement, you'll be excited to see the resources that will be available if Congress approves the recommendation. But they've got to be focused in important and strategic ways. I think when it comes to youth, we all agree we do need a better understanding of the size and the scope of the need. But of greater importance, really, is understanding what works and what doesn't for the subpopulations among youth who are experiencing homelessness. And as we see it at Interagency Council, this should be in nearly every community across the country well served by the resources that are made available. So toward that end, Deputy Director Jennifer Ho and I have been working together with our partners to create some momentum on this issue. And we so appreciate all of you in this room who've been so generous with your time and talking with us to better understand needs, barriers, and solutions. We really thank you for speaking up about your concerns. Just this past December, the Council meeting focused on the issue of youth homelessness for the first time ever. The Cabinet Secretaries came to us out of that meeting and they told us loud and clear they want action, not simply further study on the issue, but moving forward in action. So we are now facilitating an unprecedented dialogue among agencies to determine the most strategic actions we can take right now. Your insights and input are encouraged and welcomed in this dialogue. So when I reflect back on where we've come from the 2 years ago when I stood on this podium, I want to reflect that we've accomplished some things together. But I also want to call out that there is so much work yet to be done, and we're going to need your continued creativity, your energy, and your focus now more than ever. And toward that end, I have 3 requests. And the first is, we need your help to secure resources, not just in Washington, but at the state and local levels as well. So how can we work together to make the case that we need more affordable housing? We need more resources for youth. We need more resources for the homeless services system. Second, we need you to continue to promote the best practices and help with implementation of opening doors in the field. Opening doors is not a plan that needs to sit on a shelf in Washington. It's got to be implemented in the community. So we've got to get better at targeting resources to provide the right intervention at the right time to that youth or family who's at risk of or experiencing homelessness. And the third ending homelessness for families, youth, and children, as well as those experiencing chronic and veterans homelessness. Opening Doors, with your input, lays out the roadmap, and it makes the case for the resources that are needed to achieve this vision. So we ask you today to sign on. We ask you to do that by making 4 commitments. First is align your community efforts with Opening Doors. Commit to those 4 goals of ending homelessness. Commit to the incremental targets and measure your progress toward those goals. And thirdly, continue to act strategically. Collaborate, invest, and act on those strategies that are proven to make the most impact. And fourth, partner with us. Keep lines of communication open with public officials at all levels to share what you're doing. So right now, I would like to see a show of hands of those communities, those people who, like our good friends in Connecticut, in Kentucky, Philadelphia, Seattle, Fresno, Lancaster County, and as of just yesterday, Santa Monica, have all signed on to work on Opening Doors across America. So can we see a show of hands if you're committed to working with us to further this movement, to get Opening Doors across America to happen? All right, thank you. We have a lot of work to continue the momentum. And we'll do a poll next year. Maybe in July, we'll see whether you actually did it. Because time is short. We've got to move this forward. So I just want to remind you, it really was at your urging that the administration set out this bold vision. We could have had a less ambitious plan, but you said to us, we want a bold vision. We want to end veterans and chronic homelessness by 2015. We absolutely must end family, youth, and child homelessness by 2020. We need your efforts now. It is certainly harder than what I thought I signed up for. It's certainly a harder time back in all of your communities. But we won't be able to achieve these goals and this vision without you. And so I stand here today on behalf of President Obama, on behalf of Council Chair, HHS Secretary Kathleen Sebelius, and I thank you for all the hard work you've done to get us this far, but more importantly, for the hard work you're going to do into the future, day after day, to make this a country that is a better place for all of us. So thank you for being our partners in that vision. So I think all of you know that one of the things that I certainly believed in my work in Columbus and continue to share with this administration is the importance of using data for planning and evaluation, and that's a hallmark of Opening Doors. And I just really want to recognize our colleagues at HUD for being their leadership on this particular issue. And because of those efforts of focused on data and what works, we've continued to make the case within the administration and see budget increases at a time when the majority of federal programs have been seeing steep cuts. And so even though our friends at HUD have faced difficult challenges of rolling out some new programs at a really tough time, and uncertainty, we are really glad to have great partners with our friends at HUD and the SNAP's office. And I think all of you can agree that firsthand, the amount of time and effort that Mark Johnston, Anna Leva, and all of their staff at the SNAP's office over the past 3 years have put into this effort is really noteworthy. And so there's really no, yes, so let's applaud them. And then the other place within HUD that we've really been able to build a really strong partnership is developing relationships with our friends and colleagues at HUD's Office of Public and Indian Housing. And under the leadership of Assistant Secretary Sandra Henriquez, the diligent efforts of the HUD VASH team have yielded some really impressive outcomes in the past year. And it's their efforts working with VA that have made possible the efforts in the field to make veterans homelessness on the decline. That decline is just incredible, 12% decrease. I just want to say that again. I think that proves that with investment of new resources and using that in smart ways and collaborating, we do move the needle. We couldn't have done that without Sandy and her team. But just yesterday, we were very excited and privileged to be a part of an effort with the folks at the SNAP's office, Sandy's team at PIH, and we brought together a number of public housing directors from from the West Coast, as well as Continuum of Care counterparts. And we started to have a discussion on how PHAs and continuums can work together better at the local level to meet the needs of households experiencing homelessness. I want you to know that before arriving at HUD, Sandy spent 13 years as the administrator and the chief executive officer of the Boston Housing Authority. She created some really innovative strategies and programs to help those experiencing homelessness. Under her leadership, homeless families and individuals in Boston have had priority access to BHA resources. I've certainly enjoyed Sandy's perspectives and her challenge. She often says to me something to this effect: HUD doesn't stand in the way of PHAs being involved in any homelessness. In Boston, we were active participants. Let it go forth and be this way everywhere. It's really been an honor to work with Sandy. Yes, that deserves applause. It's been great to work with Sandy and her team the last 2+ years, and I look forward to her continued partnership as we implement Opening Doors. And join me in welcoming Sandy to the stage.
Thank you, Barbara, and good afternoon, everyone. So, I will go on script and off script, so bear with me as I sort of go through this. But first of all, I want to say to Nan and to the Alliance, Jan, thank you for your remarkable leadership and your commitment, ongoing, deep and abiding commitment to end homelessness, and for all the work that you do. I also want to thank members of your board, particularly led by your co-chair, Susan Baker and Mike Lowry. And I'd like to acknowledge the HUD team that's in the room. Some of the names are called. I see Mark. Christine, are you here? Other members of the HUD team? Christine is here, and Christine, along with people in the CPD shop and with USICH and with CSH, pulled together, as Barbara mentioned, a first convening of housing authorities and continuums to try and talk about how we work together to get this done. We're going to have another convening in April in Washington for East Coast partners as well. And there are a lot of lessons learned, a lot of replicability, and we think that we do indeed will be able to meet the goal of eradicating chronic homelessness by 2015 and ending homelessness among children, families, and youth by 2020. You're going to hear from Mark Johnson, I think, tomorrow, and I'd like to recognize him again, HUD's Deputy Assistant Secretary for Special Needs in the Office of Community Planning and Development. But most of all, I think we never say in our personal lives, and certainly not in our professional lives, we never say thank you enough. And so let me take this opportunity on behalf of Secretary Donovan, who's the first chair of the USICH for the government, and for all of us at HUD, thank you for what you do every single day. I have a long-time dear friend who's been in the public housing arena for his entire career. And he says, folks who work in public housing and work with underserved populations, we're really doing the Lord's work. And so you all live and breathe these issues every single day. And I often tell people your reward may not be here, and you don't do it for the large paychecks, but clearly there is something in the mission that motivates you, and for that you are all to be commended, and I am privileged and I am honored to be here with you today and spending some time together. In the best of times, it is hard work. And in times like these, you are the miracle workers who slog this stuff through every single day to get the right outcome for people. As I thought about my remarks today, I made a conscious decision not to dwell on the stories of people who did everything right but ended up on our streets. Because that certainly is a part of our narrative, but no one here, none of you need to be reminded yesterday with housing authorities on this coast. We spent some time, I asked for shows of hands on people who had participated as housing authorities in homeless accounts and folks who had really taken their staffs out to understand what it is to be homeless. And message I want, even though I've got prepared remarks, what I want you to understand about housing authorities. Sometimes we can be really scared, afraid to take this bunch of folks. We have lots of regulations, lots of rules, either on the state side, or the local side, or the federal side, and on the federal side, and on the federal side, we have rules, rules, rules. And you get whacked at a housing authority if you breach those rules. So, not for publication, but I believe in sometimes having to bend the rules, but I won't break the rules. But sometimes bending the rules simply means that you find a different way to get to yes. And so housing authorities need you and the work you do with your colleagues to do one thing. They will house everybody as best as they can. But when something goes awry, they don't want to do an eviction. They don't want to create another homeless family or individual. They need your help so when they pick up the phone at 10 o'clock at night, at 3 o'clock in the morning, and say, I have a problem and I need you here to deliver service, case management services, so we can preserve this tenancy. That's the commitment that housing authorities need from you. And I know that you are able to give that, and I know that you want to do that, and that's what housing authorities who are very gun shy need from you in a true partnership. So I want to focus again on the opportunities we have to improve on what we are already doing and the ways in which we can partner housing authorities and continuums of care to play a larger and more meaningful role in preventing and ending homelessness. By combining housing and supportive services, delivering permanent supportive housing via a targeted pipeline of resources, we've made, as you've heard, significant progress on ending chronic homelessness, reducing the number of chronically ill, long-term homeless individuals by nearly a third in the last 4 years. And that proves that as housers, we can house anyone. So our job now is to house everyone and to prevent and end homelessness. So that's what Man on the Alliance and all of you have done and fought for in communities across this country for years. And finally, the federal government is beginning to take the lead as well. I don't have to tell you that we've paid far too high a cost when it comes to homelessness. Not only in the dollars theirs, but also in the terrible price that individuals and families who experience homelessness pay. We spend those dollars in a disjointed and a fragmented way, and it doesn't really serve others well. You probably know that we spend nearly $2,000 each day for inpatient hospital care and more than $900 a day for an emergency room visit for someone who's homeless. You also know that stabilizing housing stabilizes health. You know all of the statistics that cascade from that. But do you know how much we spend in supportive, affordable housing every day? 31. That's it. Simply do the math. By working together to put an end to the revolving door of hospital visits and emergency rooms and shelters that so many in our homeless population find themselves stuck in, preventing and ending homelessness actually saves money for the taxpayer. Smart government. So in doing the right thing, having no family without decent affordable housing, which isn't always the appropriate motivation for people to do the right thing. And so I believe that you gotta find the sweet spot, find where folks are, and bring them to where you want them to be. So folks don't think about ending and preventing homelessness as the right thing to do, because as a nation, we are defined by our weakest link and how we treat each other. If that doesn't grab people to do the right thing, well, let's talk about the pocketbook, because that, I think, would resonate. And we've got to make sure we connect the dots with people. We are just beginning to see the fruit of what happens when we harness public resources and the enormous wellspring of human capital in this country. When we do this, we do provide a greater number of people, from the most capable to the most vulnerable, an opportunity to reach their full potential. I could spend some time this afternoon talking about the success HUD has seen in working with the Veterans Administration to provide critical housing assistance to our vets, and touch on some of the ways in which housing authorities can increase their efforts to combat homelessness. But many of you already know that story, and you live that story. So what I'd like to talk about, though, are tackling that this problem requires getting the most accurate picture of the problem. In 2011, there were nearly 240,000 families who were homeless on a single night in January. And there are more than 1 million Americans who experience homelessness at some point each and every year. The reason people are homeless are as diverse as America itself, and while some are scarred by war, others are women with children fleeing domestic violence, still others, as you know, are youth aging out of foster care, or perhaps they're just unable to stay with family, hostile to their sexual orientation or gender identity. And increasingly, we are seeing families falling into homelessness whose incomes have plummeted as a result of the recession through foreclosure, evictions, layoffs, or healthcare costs. And with a 56% increase in rural and suburban family homelessness, we see that homelessness is not simply an urban problem, but one with which every type of community struggles. And despite all of the diversity among people experiencing homelessness, every member of America's homeless population does share one thing in common. They lack access to housing they can afford. And that is our challenge at HUD. You and I both know that before there was a foreclosure crisis in this country, there was an affordable rental housing crisis. And the recession has only made that worse. It's no coincidence that the reemergence of widespread homelessness during the recession of the early 1980s took place as our nation experienced a precipitous loss of our nation's affordable housing stock. Cities across the country lost hundreds of thousands of units, leaving a tremendous chasm in housing stock affordable to the very poorest, that we are still trying to help climb out of that chasm. So let's not make that same mistake again. HUD's investments over the last 3 years have been the clearest statements in a generation that the federal government is back in the business of affordable rental housing. And subsequent years under this administration, HUD will continue to do everything in its power to hold the line on funding for affordable rental housing in a political environment that seems determined to reduce federal spending on the backs of the nation's most vulnerable. We cannot, in bold and underscored, we cannot allow that to happen. So, where do we go from here? Well, although we've made significant progress under HUD-VASH, we still have a long way to go to meet our goal of ending veterans homelessness by 2015, but we are certain we can do it. In listening to conversations yesterday, I know that each and every one of you and housing authorities across this country are ready to bring the same level of innovation, passion, and commitment that you've already demonstrated through HUD-VASH to your discussions surrounding our broader goal of ending homelessness for families across this country. And that's the scale of ambition we're charging housing authorities and all of you to take back to your local communities. If we have any chance at all of preventing and ending homelessness, we need greater collaboration between housing authorities, COCs, NGOs, and other federal and quasi-federal agencies on this issue. We need also to get the private sector to understand the cost of homelessness in their business models as well. I'm thrilled by what we've been able to do to help thousands of vets, and VASH is a fantastic model, but we won't reach the million men, women, and children who experience homelessness each year simply through VASH. This entire conference is about identifying ways for housing authorities and COCs to think outside the box. If there's a rule that is a barrier, let's figure out what the real intent is. Let's figure out if a waiver is required, if a new program design is required, whatever that challenge is, please lift that up to us, all of us at HUD, so we can try to think through with you how to make sure foremost preferences. At the end of the day, it is all about our commitment to get this done. There was a time when many said that we couldn't afford to put in place a comprehensive health care reform package that would hold insurance companies accountable, with lower health care costs, guarantee more choice, and enhance the quality of care for all Americans. Well, now we have the Affordable Care Act that does just that. So, too, do they claim that we can't afford to end homelessness. But if the resources we are already committing across the federal government tell us anything, it's that we can't afford not to end homelessness. Whether it's reforming our healthcare system or preventing or ending homelessness, the fundamental question is exactly the same. It is not one of ability. It's a question of will. It's a question of whether we believe in our ability as Americans to do great and important things. And so, ending homelessness is a great and an important thing for us to do. I believe if we can spend trillions of dollars addressing these problems the wrong way, surely then in America working in partnership with the private sector, we can summon the strength and the courage to do it the right way and achieve the results we all want for our country. And I know from anything of working with so many of you over these past years, both inside the federal government and when I was at the Housing Authority, it's that the experience of homelessness, of housing and service providers, this whole issue is not only ready for prime time in the great public policy debate of our generation, it is absolutely essential to making sure that the debate reaches its right and its just conclusion. It is said that people don't act based on what they know, they act on what they believe. I believe that this nation can end homelessness. I also know and believe that you share that belief as well. So together, not just in shared goals, but in shared beliefs, together, we will end homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. That was terrific. Dr. Don Moulds was sworn in as the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in June of 2009. He has the longest title ever. When he was first sworn in, he actually was able to serve as the Acting Assistant Secretary for ASPE until July of 2010. He has been the Secretary's liaison to the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness throughout both of those positions, and most recently, he's also been active in working on the White House's new initiative called Strong Cities, Strong Communities. Don works very closely with HUD on numerous initiatives affecting common target populations, including homeless individuals and families. And he's also overseen multiple case studies and demonstrations aimed at identifying successful interventions for homelessness. Not that he's busy enough, but he's also decided he's also going to tackle Alzheimer's, and he is overseeing the development of a national strategy to end Alzheimer's disease, and he's a member of the Federal Advisory Council on Alzheimer's Research, Care, and Services. Prior to becoming the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary, Don served as the Vice Chairman for the California Medical Association Center for Medical and Regulatory Policy. It was in that capacity that he oversaw the development of the association's health policy initiatives, guided its position on legislation, and oversaw all of its regulatory work. I have to say that Don is one of the easiest to work with, savvy but understated people I've met in DC. He has a keen policy mind, but he also knows how to get things done in a very complicated bureaucracy. And with Don, it's not only that we get to the right result, but he is so good with people that you get there the right way. A way that builds relationships that make it possible to accomplish so much more. He's been able to mobilize his team at ASPE and across HHS to be terrific partners to the USICH. This area of homelessness, though, was new to Don. And when he took this on, I was really excited to see that he transferred those skills that he had about getting things done into this arena. So I want to thank Don for all of his efforts with the council, and please join me in welcoming him to Los Angeles.
I wanted to say thanks to a couple of folks before I get started. One is Nan, and both for the invitation to come and participate in this conference, but more importantly for all of your tremendous work on this issue in D.C. So, so I know all of you, or many of you, work with Nan in various capacities, but as someone who is on the sort of receiving side of Nan, it's quite an impressive thing to witness. She has this incredible ability to identify opportunities and to come in with a since we're using the word targeted today, I will say a targeted conversation that usually gets something going at just the right time, and it's really it's one of those rare skills where people know exactly how to get things started, and she has been a great partner to us as we have been asking questions internally within HHS and as participants in the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness conversation. I come from a research shop, so we ask a lot of questions about how we ought to be doing things. Occasionally, also questions about implementation, but she really has been a great resource and a tremendous friend, and so thank you for that. And then I also want to say special thanks to Barb, both because she said such nice things, which was totally necessary and very, very sweet, but also for her tremendous leadership and to her team. She picked a wonderful team and been doing great work. So the Interagency Council on Homelessness is a really interesting animal. There really are two responsibilities as I see it there. One is, of course, to develop the U.S. government strategy on homelessness and to create this national plan that goes beyond the government. And it's quite the plan, as you all know. It's ambitious, it's comprehensive, and I think it struck exactly the right tone. There was a lot of internal pushing to get to the ambitious goals that she's identified, but she brought people along in really important ways, and that's a tremendous accomplishment. The other piece is keeping us all on track, which is no small task. There are how many 40-plus different government agencies that participate in the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, and some of us have larger pieces of this than others, but we're all involved, and we all have our complexities, and Barb and her team have been fabulous at moving us in the right direction, both in our individual tasks, ones that are identified for particular agencies, but also in our collective efforts to meet the goals of opening doors. So thank you, Barb, for your tremendous leadership. So I wanted to start by offering a little bit of an overview of HHS, what its mission is, how it relates to homelessness, and a lot of these first couple of minutes will be somewhat repetitive for a lot of you who know perfectly well what we do and how it relates to homelessness. But I think it's important to set the stage for the conversation the Department of Health and Human Services, so this is where I think, there we go. So I'm going to talk about 5 areas where HHS is working to address family and youth homelessness. HHS has a broad mission including providing health and human services to those who are low income, and our activities are in 4 areas: funding programs, developing and assessing policy, collaborating with our federal partners, and conducting research. The slide that you have in front of you that hopefully you can read is a snapshot of our targeted programs. These are programs that are dedicated specifically to addressing homelessness. The most relevant program for youth is actually 3 programs: the Runaway and Homeless Youth Program, which is comprised of the Basic Center Program, Transitional Living Program, and the Street Outreach Program. These together provide housing, support services, and outreach to youth experiencing homelessness. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration provides a number of grants that are focused both on homeless specifically, and then individuals experiencing both mental health issues and substance abuse issues. The Healthcare for the Homeless program, which is administered by HRSA and provides a range of primary health and substance abuse treatment. So those are the main ones. You will note that in total, in 11 and 12, the funding for those programs cumulatively is about $500 million. So if we go to the next slide, these are the HHS mainstream programs. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'll mention a couple. So cumulatively, HHS's budget is $892 billion, or that's what it was for FY 12. If there's a pool out here to see what it is in FY 13, it would be interesting. That number comes out, of course, on Monday, or at least the President's Mark comes out on Monday. So it's a big department with a very broad mission and a big piece of the budget. And many of those programs have direct effects on people who are experiencing homelessness or people who are at risk of homelessness. So Head Start, for example, Early Head Start and Head Start, which is funded at just below $8 billion in 2012, provide services to homeless children in homeless families regardless of income. So they're automatically eligible for Head Start and Early Head Start. TANF, which is a $17 billion program. As I've been having this rolling conversation since I got here yesterday afternoon about the importance of TANF and the overlap between the homeless family population and the TANF population. And they are really one and the same. Homeless people homeless families are almost always eligible at some point in their life for TANF. That's a $17 billion program, or at least it was a $17 billion program last year. And then Medicaid on the health side, which is a $270 billion program, which provides healthcare services to low-income children and parents. And in 2014, will provide health insurance to anyone below 133% of poverty. So if you look at that, the difference. So the targeted programs are incredibly important programs, and maintaining those programs and their efficacy is a central mission for us as we think about how we can have a positive impact on homelessness. But the untapped possibility we can do a better job of making Medicaid work for homeless people, for example, we're in a position to serve them much more effectively. Same thing goes for TANF. If we can tap the resources that we spend on TANF in a way where we can stabilize people, get them effectively housed, etc., we're going to be much more effective than we are right now. So that is where a lot of our efforts are going at the moment, a lot of our thinking. Now there are challenges. Challenge number one is that a number of these programs are block grants. So that means that the federal government, as a practical matter, has very little say in how money that goes to the state is actually spent. But that isn't to say that we can't have play an important role in how these monies are used to serve homeless families and individuals. The conversation that we've started with the Secretary and have been continuing for some time is other tools, other ways of connecting best practices, etc. Using her as a convener, as a spokesperson, to try to get out messages, to try to bridge key relationships that are there in some communities and not there in other communities. Those are all things that we are looking at, encouraging, and exploring. So I will probably skip over I just skipped over the Affordable Care Act slide. Let me just add, I mentioned Medicaid and the expansion in 2014, which is a very big deal, particularly, I know our focus here is families and youth, but particularly for homeless individuals, many of whom are single childless adults who will become eligible for Medicaid in 2014, and we are actively looking at how we use Medicaid for permanent supportive housing and both to stabilize and provide health care. It's one of those instances where there are opportunities both to do things more efficiently and to do the right thing. So we are taking folks who are largely getting emergency room, high cost, low quality care because it's episodic, it's not preventative, etc. And trying to use Medicaid to provide care at the right time, in the right place, both so that we'll be more efficient in the use of our healthcare resources, but also and more importantly, to get better outcomes. The other big piece in the Affordable Care Act is the $11 billion investment in community health centers, which provide services not just through the Healthcare for the Homeless program, but more broadly for homeless families and families at risk of homelessness. So federal collaboration. When I began my job about 3 years ago, one of the first things that happened is one of the Secretary's counselors came in and conveyed to me a conversation that had taken place between, it was actually a lunch between Secretary Donovan and Secretary Sebelius, where they had decided to hatch this formal collaboration focusing on a handful of areas, but for the purposes of this conversation included homelessness. We have had an active conversation with HUD now for almost 3 years. I have a weekly call with Estelle Richmond, who is the Deputy Secretary, still acting, hopefully not forever, at HUD. And we talk about homelessness every week. We talk about our programs, about how they fit together, about what we ought to be doing, about what we know, about what we don't know. It's been an eye-opening activity. It's been incredibly productive. We had 2 fabulous initiatives in the 2010 and 2011 budgets that included, in both years, 6,000 vouchers for homeless families that did not, coupled with supportive services, that did not make it through Congress in either year. But out of that work, we've hatched a lot of collaborative work to look at the rules that bear on grading services and how to better align the work that we do for the same population. We also initiated 2 really important research projects. One was on chronic homelessness, and then the other one was a 14 community study on family homelessness. The other important piece of federal collaboration that we're currently engaged in is the USICH work. I either mentioned or meant to mention that the Secretary will be chair of the USICH this year. We've been having conversations with Barb and her team about how we use that opportunity specifically around youth homelessness and family homelessness. I will tell you that she is enormously excited about the possibility of using the ICH, both meetings and her position as chair, to engage stakeholders in a national conversation around both family homelessness and youth homelessness. She's tremendously interested in connecting people across the country to get a better understanding of the things that are working, but also is interested in pursuing an active and aggressive research strategy and hopefully making a good amount of progress on youth homelessness. And then the other thing I'll mention very briefly is the engagement that we've had with cities. So SC2, which is the President's Strong Cities, Strong Communities initiative, and is a pilot in 6 cities. We are actively HHS involved in the work plan in 3 of those cities: Fresno, Memphis, and New Orleans, the last 3. And in 2 of those cities, we are doing important work around homelessness. So as part of that initiative, I now have a weekly call, for example, with the health commissioner in New Orleans and with the mayor's homelessness, the head of the mayor's homelessness office. And it's been a tremendous opportunity to do a bunch of different things. But some of them involve sharing technical assistance, but it's sort of a testing ground for forging a better relationship with cities. One of the things that Barb has been tremendously successful in is these convenings that she's done around the country, and particularly in the cities that they target, bringing together the community, talking through best practices, and getting people focused on some of the goals of opening doors. We've sort of stolen from her playbook and are doing some of that work on a more micro level in these cities where, for example, we've engaged a technical assistance person on the ground to work on a handful of homelessness-related issues in New Orleans, and we're then looking at how you can scale that kind of thing and what you get from it, et cetera. It's been a very valuable endeavor. So, ending family homelessness. So as Barb mentioned, one of the central goals of Opening Doors is ending family homelessness by 2020. And when we originally started pursuing that goal, we envisioned beginning with this big voucher initiative and learning about interventions through this. And we've had to switch up the playbook a little bit because of the challenges of getting budgets passed in these kinds of times. And so what we did in my office, the Office of Planning and Evaluation, is we've gone forward with a study of 14 communities across the country that were identified as particularly effective, having particularly effective programs, particularly focused on connecting social services and housing resources. 7 of them were public housing agency linked programs, and 7 were not. And we were able to identify 10 practices, which I will not get into right now because our contractor is doing a session this afternoon to go into all of the details. But 10 practices that were common to all of them. It's the start of an important conversation to look at what is working, and from that work we intend to begin a second part of the phase, which is a dissemination strategy. There's also, I'll mention on our website, which is the hhs.gov/ASPE, there's a research brief that we put out about a month and a half ago, which summarizes the work if you're not able to attend the session this afternoon. And then the second piece, skipping. The second piece is the piece that Barb mentioned very briefly, which is the reinvigorated strategy on youth homelessness. So we had at Barb's encouragement, began a conversation with multiple agencies across the government, led by the ICH and also our commissioner for children, or administrator rather, for children, youth, and families at ACF, Brian Samuels, focused on youth homelessness. So we don't know nearly as much as we should about youth homelessness. We know some things, but we do not have the numbers that we have when you look at the chronic population or the data that we have on families. We are getting to a point now where we're starting to be able to differentiate between important segments of the youth homeless population, and from there looking at interventions that are appropriate for some of them and not for others. Typography in this area is going to be absolutely essential, but more than that, a firm strategy. So the Secretary has been pushing on this as much as just about anything that I'm working with her on these days, which is wonderful. She wants to engage all of you in a national conversation about this and to have a successful strategy going forward. So with that, I'll close and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much to Dawn and to Sandy. You know, I know all of you work at the local level, and the county level, state level to try to achieve systems change, and it's hard. And I would say that at the federal level, it's at least 50 times harder. And these two people are so talented at that and so committed. And we appreciate so much what they're doing and how serious they are about it. It's really been extraordinary. And Don, as if he doesn't have enough on his plate, just had twins. He added twins to the mixture this fall. So, and as a sideline, he and I have a hobby where we're trying to get a little international exchange of information going too. So I really thank you all, and of course thanks to Barb who's leading all of this. Let me just very quickly, because I know we're running late. First, I just want to say there's Betsy Lieberman. I think many of you know her, is really been an extraordinary leader. She is going to be retiring this year. Wait, hold your applause for 1 sec. And Betsy really was a pioneer in the area of AIDS housing and permanent supportive housing early on. She sort of invented that AIDS housing concept or idea, helped people around the country really learn how to do that. Was a big part of the movement forward on permanent supportive housing altogether. Having accomplished her goals around that, she switched to families and changed her organization. AIDS Housing of Washington became Building Changes and started focusing on families. And she's done an extraordinary set of things in Washington State, getting the private sector and philanthropy paired with the government. The Washington Families Fund to raise money to end family homelessness, working on the systems, advancing the best practices. She's been a tremendous partner, bringing all of that to the national advocacy work as well as the best practice work. She's been doing this for quite a while, had a huge impact, great colleague of the alliances that Henriquez is going to retire this year, so I just wanted to ask you to join me in thanking her. I just want to quickly say the leftover meals from today's lunch will be donated to the Midnight Mission LA. So if you're feeling down, feel badly, not good ways. There's a reception tonight in the Crystal Ballroom upstairs, 6 to 7:15. Lions t-shirts will be available for purchase at that time. And be sure tomorrow, the plenary at noon tomorrow is going to be really great. The much lauded at the conference, Mark Johnston will be making some pithy and pertinent remarks that you all want to hear. Mark is who controls everything.